my most amazing artists. I hope you are having an awesome day today. Welcome to week 2 of our pop art hands inspired by Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol is a very famous pop artist. He painted very popular things during the 1960s during our pop art movement that we have been studying, and he would print the same image over and over again. He would just change the colors of each image that he printed. And for us, we have chosen to use our hands as our main subject, and we traced our hands 6 times and we used a bunch of different colors to paint each section. So now we are ready to move on to the very last part of this project, which is printing, and we're gonna do something a little bit messy today. So what I have in front of me is my painting all complete with all my bright, beautiful colors. I have a paintbrush and I have my paint palette here, but we're only going to use one color today, and that color is black. And I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do with our black paint in just a second. Underneath my work, I of course have a messy map because I don't want any of this mess to get on my table. And you know how Andy Warhol would do a lot of prints? Well, we are going to print our hand today on top of our painting, and I'm so excited. I'm going to show you how to do it in just a second, but we have to prep first, okay? I have a watch on, so I'm going to take that off because I don't want paint to get all over my watch or my bracelet, so I'll take that off, and I'm going to roll my sleeves up. Even though we are using washable paint, we still don't want to be messy on purpose, okay? We're still creating artwork, and we still have to be responsible with our paint today. Even though we're being a little bit messier than we normally do, we still have to take care of our materials and try our best. Now I'm ready to start printing. So I have my paintbrush in my right hand, and I'm going to be printing my left hand because that is the hand that I traced on my paper. Okay, if you traced your right hand on your paper, then your left hand is going to hold your paintbrush. My left hand is going to be the one who is stamping or printing today, and my right hand is going to be applying the paint to my hand. And yes, you heard that correctly. We are going to be painting our hand in just a second, but we're only going to paint one side of our hand, and that is the side where your palm is and where you can see your fingerprints. We are not going to put paint on the top of our hands because that would be way too hard to print, I think. So we're only going to put paint on this side of our hand, not on the top of our hand where our fingernails are. We are only going to print on this side of our hand, okay? So I'm ready. I'm going to grab some black paint on my paintbrush, and guess what? I am going to start painting it on my hand. Oh my gosh, this feels so weird to do. I'm not going to be globbing this on my hand. I'm just getting a little bit of paint at a time. I am going to go a little bit fast though, because if this paint dries, then it's not going to show up on my paper when I try to stamp it. Okay, so don't go very slow when you add your paint to your hand because then your paint might dry. I also don't want to do big old globs of paint because then whenever we print it on our paper, well, it's going to look like a big old glob of paint. So I'm just going to do one layer, and you see how fast I went? And now I have to go really quick. I'm going to flip my hand over. I'm going to try to line it up with the same way that I traced my hand, and I'm going to press down. Okay, I'm just pressing down with my hand. I can use my other hand to try to press it down even more. Once your hand is down on your paper, we cannot move it around. This is printmaking, so we're just printing it once on our paper. We are not painting, we're not finger painting today, we are printmaking. So I think mine is ready. I'm not going to move my hand from left to right. I'm just going to hold my paper down with one hand, and I'm going to pull up. Oh wow, that looks so cool. And now I'm ready to move on to my next hand. If your hand doesn't show up that well, then that means your paint has probably dried, okay? So that means we need to work a little bit faster, because remember, your handprint will not show up if this paint is dry on your hand. It has to be wet, it has to be a little bit shiny. So mine has dried a little bit, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more paint and I'm gonna paint on my hand. Am I painting on both sides of my hand? No, I'm just painting on the side that we are printing, which is the side with our palm and our fingerprints, okay? Am I globbing this paint on my hand, big old globs of paint? No, because then when I print it, it's just gonna look like a big old glob of paint, okay? While this is very messy, it is very fun, we still have got to be responsible while we are doing this. Do not start printing your hand on your face. Don't touch your hand to your face, because you know what would happen? Oh, you'll get black paint all over your hand. Do not grab somebody else's arm with your hand, because then you're gonna make your handprint on their arm. Is that being very responsible with your materials? No, it's not, okay? The only place your painted hand should be touching is your paper. Okay, so I'm gonna check. My hand is pretty shiny. When it's shiny, that means that it is wet and it's ready to be printed. So I just rotated my paper because this hand is facing that way, and I gotta work fast because we don't want our paint to dry. And I'm gonna try to line it up with that hand. Don't move your hand around, because then it is going to smear across your paper. Just press your hand down and then pull up. And there is your handprint. And it looks so, so cool, especially against those bright colors in the background. Okay, so I'm gonna do this for every single section. That means I'm gonna paint my hand 6 times all together. And I'm gonna be very, very careful while I'm doing this to not touch anything else besides my paper with my painted hand. I am going to show that I am responsible with my materials today, and I'm gonna have fun because it is a little bit messy, but I still have to be responsible. So I'm gonna go ahead and print the rest of my hands on my paper. It looks like I have 4 more to go, and then I'll be back to show you what my final pop art painting looks like. I just finished printing the rest of my hands, and by the way, if your handprint does not show up that well, then you can try to print it again. Do not use your paintbrush to try to fill in the spaces. That's not what printmaking is. That's called painting, when you are using a paintbrush to fill in the space. And are we really painting on our paper today? No, we are printmaking. So if it doesn't show up that well, then here is what I recommend. I recommend adding a little bit more paint to your hand. Make sure it's nice and shiny, so then your paint is definitely wet. If it looks a little bit dull, then it means your paint is dry. And you can try to print on the same area one more time. Do not print in the same area more than 2 times. If you print more in the same area a bunch of times over and over and over again, it's gonna look very, very sloppy, and you probably won't even be able to see your hand that well anymore, okay? So I've just done each of these prints 1 time. I only stamped it once, but if you absolutely have to print 1 more time, then you can, to make it show up a little bit better. But my advice to you is just the first time that you go to print it, make sure your hand is nice and shiny with paint, so then it will show up very nicely on your paper. But after you print all of your hands in each section, then you are done for today. Now, of course, we are going to be washing our hands because we can't walk around the school like this. We don't want to get paint everywhere. So we're going to get to wash our hands today. But other than that, you are done with your pop art painting. I hope you guys had a lot of fun with this project and learned a lot about pop art and Andy Warhol. I cannot wait to see how your final artworks turn out. I know they're going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.